Welcome to my top 5 attacking factions for Total War Rome 2 video. Now, this is going to be based on multiplayer, so not single player, and using the standard rules of max 4 archers, max 2 pikes, and 1 artillery. Usually high funds. A lot of people like to play with ultra large funds, and I'm going to be looking for the most well-rounded factions that are going to be great in any situation and facing any faction. Because I know there's going to be a lot of great factions that could be amazing, but they're very situational or they're only good against certain factions. So what I'm looking for are the factions that are just great workhorse factions, well-rounded, and it doesn't matter what map you pick, it doesn't matter what faction you're facing, this faction is going to be a good attacking faction. And I know what you're probably thinking. You're going, well, Apollo, well, based on that, I already know who's number 1, and this list is stupid. Well, you know what? You don't know, because you're probably thinking Rome, and guess what? Rome isn't okay, it is number 1. I'm sorry. Rome is number 1. In terms of workhorse, well-rounded, Rome is fantastic. They've got really amazing high-tier, low-tier, medium-tier infantry. They've got great archers, slingers, cav. I mean, they've got it all. They can bring a tortoise to siege battles, and they're just amazing. But here's the problem with Rome. They are so boring. Seriously, they're really boring. You can't do anything creative with them. You just throw them into the fight, and they're going to kill anything in their way. That is why you don't see a lot of veteran players play as Rome, because it's just really boring. So for the sake of this video, to make the video more interesting, we're going to throw Rome out the window, and we're going to pretend that Rome never existed, which, you know, honestly, I'm sure a lot of ancient civilizations, you know, I'm sure they wish that was true. I also want to give a big thank you to my YouTube members who were helping me out in making this list. They're very skilled, very knowledgeable players, and I was comparing notes with them in terms of the best factions, and honestly, without them, I don't think this video would have existed or would have been as good. So big thank you to them. I have all the names of the people who helped me out listed in the video descriptions. So thank you guys so much, and let's go ahead and get started with this top 5 faction attacking faction list. So, for my number 5, I have Galatia. Galatia, at first glance, you might be thinking like, well, look at this roster. It's actually pretty limited. There's really not that much. It's not a variety, you know, a lot of variety. Well, yeah, that's true. But if you look at what they do have, it's actually quite impressive. Looking at their infantry, they've got these deadly Galatian legionaries that cost really cheap for what they can do. So they're well armored, they can do a lot of damage, and they can go toe to toe with a lot of infantry that costs more than them. So the fact that you can spam them out because of how cheap they are, that's pretty nasty. Also, the Galatian swords, another good unit for a lower tier unit, 380. They can pack a punch. I think they're a little weak on armor, so it's something you got to be careful with. You got to watch out for, yeah, see, they have 45 armor and their legionaries have 75. So it's not terrible, but you got to watch out for arrows and whatnot. But still, for the price, the Galatian swords, excellent. Now, what makes them even better than just, you know, of course they have great infantry, but what makes them amazing and attacking is the Syrian archers. The Syrian archers are nasty. They're one of the best archers in the game, and you can bring 3 of them. They are of course a mercenary force for the Galatians, but this mix with the Galatian infantry is insanely nasty. These archers can take out enemy archers, they can take out pikes, they can take out a lot of infantry, and you combine that with the Galatian legionaries, and it's gonna be gross. You're gonna have a tough time defending against that. Now, there's a reason why they're at 5 instead of, say, 3, 2, or even 1, and they are, of course, I mentioned a limited roster. They do have a limited roster, and that's why I kind of put them back at 5 instead of 3. Also, with the mercenary Syrian archers, you can only bring 3, and they don't really have, and usually the rules are max 4 skirmishers. You want to bring 4 skirmishers, but what do you bring? I mean, do you bring the Celtic slingers or the Celtic skirmishers? I mean, they're not really that amazing compared to the mercenary Syrian archers, so your 4th skirmisher unit is not going to be that amazing. Now, they do have some good cav as well, which I forgot to mention. I know cav is not like super huge. Like it might seem like cav is not a huge thing in siege battles, but I've seen cav charge in, sneak in, do some flanking, going after some archers, and turn the tide of a battle. So the fact that they have decent cav is another huge help in their, in their attacking capabilities. So that's why I have them at 5. They've got good infantry that you can spam. They've got the Syrian archers, but they have a limited roster. You can't bring elephants, you can't bring pikes, and their backup archers aren't that great. So for my number 4, I have Carthage. Carthage is an excellent faction because they have some fantastic mercenary infantry. You got these noble fighters and the Samnite warriors. They also have some good non-mercenary infantry like the Libyan infantry. They have some good pikes, hoplites. Again, they got the sacred band, but that's usually more for defensive capabilities. But the pikemen are actually pretty good aggressively. A lot of people think pikes are more for defense, but actually pikemen can do a lot of damage on the attack, and they're also a good counter to enemy pikes. So the African pikes, pretty solid. Of course, they can bring the Cretan archers, some slingers, so they've got some good skirmishing capability. They have some good cav as well. They have elephants, artillery. So yeah, they can bring a lot to the table. They can also bring a tortoise, which a tortoise is the equipment you can use to knock down stone walls. It's like they make these walls look like paper mache. It's insane. So the tortoise is a big element to this army's strength. Now, the reason I have them at 4 instead of, say, 3 or 2 is because, well, their infantry is really expensive. The mercenary forces, they've got a price because, well, they're mercenaries. So it can be really hard if you're playing with less money to build a full, strong army because of how expensive these guys are. And the biggest reason why I don't have them higher up on the list is because to get the full potential of Carthage, you have to have Hannibal at the Gates DLC. And it's kind of like a pay-to-win thing, you know what I mean? Like, if you just had the default standard game, you wouldn't have the full potential of Carthage, and I really see that as a negative thing. So yeah, that is the reason why I have them at number 4 instead of, say, 2, is because of that big DLC issue, and of course of how expensive their units can be. But I feel like Carthage in the right hands with the DLC, they are one of the best. They are tough to defend against and really nasty. So for my 3rd best attacking faction, I have Egypt. Egypt is one of the best because they kind of remind me of Rome. They're very noob friendly. You know, they're very easy to use because they have a lot of really everything. They've got great infantry like the Royal Peltis. They have the Thorax Swordsman, which, you know, isn't amazing, but they're not terrible. They're kind of like the feudal knights of the ancient world. They're just a backbone type of faction. They're going to be, you know, a big part of your army, and they can get a lot done. They also have some good pikes. They've got good archers like the mercenary Cretan archers and slingers, and they've got a mix of other things you can, like Peltis, light Peltis, Nubian bowmen. Like, there's a lot you can select from for the Egyptian skirmishing force. They have some good cav. They've got elephants, which is something that can be a real pain when you're defending against. So there's a lot going on for Egypt and they're really, really easy to use. Now, the reason I don't have them at 2 or 1 is because, well, they can't bring a tortoise. They can't bring a tortoise to the battlefield, which is actually kind of surprising. You would think they would be able to bring that kind of technology. They also don't have any specialized infantry. Now, technically they do if you include the Sobek cultist, which is a great unit. It's a great support unit, causes fear. It's awesome. But you can't get them unless you get the Beastman DLC, which is like $2 right now, so it's not overly expensive. But it's just something that I think is a negative. So yeah, if you get the DLC, you got the Sobek Cultist, which again is a great support unit. So I think Egypt's great. And honestly, between Egypt and Carthage, they could be interchanged. Like, Egypt could easily be number 4 and Carthage be number 3. But I put Carthage at 4 instead of 3 is because of the big, like, Hannibal at the Gates DLC. But, you know, one thing that Carthage has over Egypt is that they have tortoises. You can bring a tortoise to the battlefield, but you can't with Egypt. So again, they're so close. They're pretty much even, but I slightly put Egypt over Carthage because you don't need as much DLC to get the full potential of Egypt. So yeah, Egypt's a great faction, really solid force, tough to defend against. Also a pretty good defensive faction. They're very versatile, but we'll get to that to another video. So let's now move on to our second best attacking faction, and that's gonna be Cush. Alright, so this might be no surprise to some of you guys, especially if you watch the Siege tournament. Like literally every video, one of the attackers bringing Cush. And why is Cush so powerful? Well, look at their melee infantry. They've got these boys called Shotel Warriors, alright? These guys don't mess around. They are disgusting. They do a ton of armored piercing damage, and it is tough to stop. Alright, it is really tough to stop. Also, they've got some great archers. They got the Royal Cushite archers, which are very difficult to deal with. And are you guys seeing a trend here with really good infantry, really good archers? I mean, that's a really important combo, and Cush has it. So the issue with the Royal Cushite archers is that they're a little expensive. So if you are playing a lower funds game, I would definitely go with the Cushite archers because they're not as good, but they do have some cool abilities, and they're still pretty solid for the 480. So they're both really solid archer units. So and also they've got a good variety of different units they can bring in terms of the skirmishing capabilities. So yeah, of course they can bring elephants, they have artillery, so yeah, pretty solid force all around. Now the issue of the Cush, and the reason I don't have them at 1, and you know what the funny thing about Cush, I'll explain this a little bit later. Let me first explain why they're not number 1. So the reason I have them at number 2 instead of number 1 is because their strength is their weakness. They are kind of one-dimensional in terms of the armor piercing. You know, the armor piercing is awesome if you're taking on Rome or Egypt or anybody who has a lot of armored units, but they struggle against good counters, which are like barbarian factions. So like Swaby could take on Cush really well, or the Odrysian Kingdom have really good infantry they could take on, or Lusitani. So it's kind of like, yes, they're really good and they will beat most factions, but they can be countered really easily, and that is why I have them at number 2. And the funny thing is that if Cush took on any of the other top 5 factions in this list, like say Cush was attacking them, they would beat them, because a lot of these top 5 attacking factions are high in armor. So I don't know, I just think that's kind of funny, and that's why they are number 2, because they are nasty. I mean, they've got, like I said, they've got the elephants, they've got a lot of cool units you can bring to the table, but a little one-dimensional. They also have some pike units, which I think is kind of cool. They're not good, but you know, you do have some pike units which you can kind of use. So that is the reason why I have Cush at number 2, and I think that it's a really good number 2. It's just, you know, it's kind of easy to counter Cush. And don't get me wrong, if you go Cush in like a random lobby, you know, with like random players, you're still gonna do really well, because a lot of people don't know how to deal with Cush. But if you go against experienced players, those experienced players are purposely going to counter pick your Cush pick and go as a lightly armored high attack faction. Well, here we are, finally, at the moment we've all been waiting for. Who is number 1? Well, guys, number 1 is going to have to wait a little bit longer, because I do want to do some honorable mentions. Let's really quick look at some factions that are also excellent attacking factions, but they just missed the top 5 list. So for honorable mention, we have Swaby. Swaby's a great faction because they have a lot of great low-tier infantry. But the thing with Swaby is that there's a high learning curve to use Swaby. They've got a lot of fear units, a lot of specialized units, but you've got to be quite the player to use them. Also, they have a lot of units that are really good that are added with some DLC. So it's another issue of just you need the DLC to get the full potential of Swaby. And again, the high learning curve of Swaby, that's the reason why I don't have them in the top 5. Another great honorable mention is the Lusitani. The Lusitani are a great faction because they have fantastic infantry, but their weaknesses, again, I would say there's a bit of a learning curve to use them, but they lack archers. They don't have archers, they have slingers, which is good on a defensive side. Honestly, I think Lusitani would be a better defense than attacking, but they're still a great attacking. But yeah, they just lack the archers. Their infantry is great, but they don't have a lot of armor. And again, another issue with them is that they need the Daughters of Mars DLC because it adds the Lusitani swordswomen, which are pretty solid. So another DLC issue with them. But Lusitani, if you use them to attack, you're going to do pretty good. They're a great attacking faction. So my next honorable mention is Nabatea. So Nabatea is a great attacking faction because, honestly, because of one unit alone. This archer unit, the Nabatean heavy archers, are disgusting. They are so good. I hate seeing them on the battlefield because they just shred archers to no other. You know, if you are in an archer battle, archer v archer, the Nabatean heavy archers, just don't fight them. They're too good. And they'll shred infantry, of course. So these archers are really good. The reason they're not in the top 5, in my opinion, is because they lack high tier infantry. So they don't have a lot of great high tier infantry. I mean, they've got good infantry, but if you're taking on, you know, if you're taking on Rome or Egypt in a defense, it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough to cut through with noble swordsmen. So that is honestly, in my opinion, the biggest weakness with Nabatea. They also have cheap pikes, which could help. They're not going to be the best pikes, but you know, you throw them into a melee against a sword unit, they should be able to do a lot of damage. But again, the reason they're not in the top 5 is because their lack of high tier infantry. So my second to last honorable mention is the Arverni. They are a great attacking faction because of their infantry. Reminds me a lot of the Galatian faction. They have great infantry, but one thing they don't have that Galatia has is amazing archers. They're Gallic hunters. They don't really get the job done. There's a lot of better archers out there, and that's the one weakness with Arverni in terms of attacking, because archers are just so important. Now, does that mean you can't win with Arverni? Absolutely. They made honorable mention. Of course you can. You're going to do great with Arverni. It's just when you're in a skirmish battle, you got to use your archers a little bit more creatively. Try to hold them back, save them, or, you know, somehow figure out how to take out the enemy archers, because that's going to do you wonders. So that is the reason why they didn't make the top 5 list, is because their lack of archer ability. And for my final honorable mention, we have Tylus. Tylus is a cool faction because of their infantry. I mean, they've got Oathsworn tribal warriors. They have the Thracian warriors, which are freaking fantastic. But very similar to the Arverni, they actually have no archers. They've got slingers, which is a good defensive unit, but in terms of being aggressive, archers are king, and they just don't have that archer ability, which really hurts Tylus. And I think that's why they just missed the top 5 list. But again, very similar to the Arverni. Great infantry. You bring them to an attack, you bring them to a siege battle, and you're attacking, you're going to do great with Tylus. Again, just look out for the archers, figure out a way to kill the enemy archers, and to really, you know, make it, you want to try to play so it's in your favor, right? And if you take out enemy archers, their infantry, they're going to have a tough time against yours. So yeah, Tylus is a great attacking faction, but just missed the top 5. All right, so now here we are. Who is the best faction for attacking that's not Rome in Total War Rome 2, in my opinion, is the Seleucids. Yep, that's right. The Seleucids are crazy strong. Why? Well, just look at their roster. Look at every single category that they can bring. So you got melee, spear, pike infantry, missile infantry, cav, elephants, artillery. If you just look at all these different categories, they are stacked. They are on steroids. They have so many good units they can bring to the table. So for example, the pikes, they've got like the best pike. The Silver Shield pikemen are like the best pikes in the game. You see Silver Shield pikemen, focus them down with archer fire, try to get them off the battlefield. So they have great cav. They have fantastic cav, which of course is really important. Get a couple good cav, they can do a lot of damage. They can bring a tortoise to the battlefield. So if you're playing, again, you can only use tortoises during a walled siege. So you can't use it at barbarian settlements. I mean, they have walls, but it's like a dirt wall thing. So you can only use a tortoise during walled siege. But if you do use if you are fighting on a walled siege, make sure you bring that tortoise as the Seleucids, because they are going to do wonders. They also have mercenary Syrian elephants, which are really good. I think you need this with the Beast DLC if I'm not mistaken, but they have fantastic elephants. But here's the thing, in my opinion, the reason that makes them number one is not the great infantry, because trust me, they do. I mean, look at this infantry. They've got the Royal Peltis, they have the Silver Shield Swordsman, they have Thorax Swords, they even have Hillmen, which, you know, you got your low tier, the throwaway unit. But the reason that makes them better than anyone is the fact that they can bring 4 Syrian archers to the battlefield. Most factions that have Syrian archers, they're mercenary, and you can only bring 3 of them. For the Seleucids, you can bring 4 of them. And that is huge. That is going to help you win a lot of skirmishing engagements, and that's going to make you a deadly force. So, yeah, the Seleucids are nasty, guys. I mean, they are just stacked in every category. And if you see the Seleucids, if you're defending and you're taking on the Seleucids, I mean, good luck, guys. Just good luck, because it is going to be tough. So, that concludes my top 5 attacking factions in Total War Rome 2. Please let me know how you guys feel about this top 5 list. I know a lot of this is just opinionated, or very, you know, it's very, I don't know. I mean, I'm sure you guys can bring up some good points too. Maybe you don't like certain factions in certain areas, like maybe you think Galatia shouldn't be in there, or maybe you think they should be 4 or 5. Let me know in the comments down below. And hey, please share your top 5 list in the comments. I would love to see what you guys think are the top 5 attacking factions. So if you guys really enjoyed this video, of course, don't forget to leave a like or leave a dislike if you didn't like it for whatever reason. But yeah, I appreciate you guys watching, and if this video does really well, we can do more top 5. I have a lot of other topics, like top 5 best defending factions, top 5 best versatile factions, as in they're good both in attacking and defending. I mean, there's a lot we can go over. We can do like top 5 most underrated factions in Rome 2, anything like that. Yeah, so if you enjoyed this, let me know. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you guys next time on the battlefield.